us, media, we send the UCF football family and Chris Clark's family our condolences, thoughts and prayers, and it's been a very tough week. Just kind of how do you shift focus? It's really tough. You get serious news Sunday night, Monday mornings in the middle of the beginning of a game week. I know Monday was tough to process, but how do you sort of get the guys ready for what's going to be a really big game on Saturday?
Yeah, no, it's a great and sad reminder that just the world just keeps moving along, and it's not fair. It's not fair to his family, but it's unfortunately you're reminded just eerily so how the world keeps spinning for everybody else, and it's an awful feeling that way. Feels so terrible for his family. Your world changes in an instant. We get to go continue to coach football and go home to our families, and the same thing with our players. You get a chance to hug their families this weekend and everything else, and that's not a reality for the Clark family anymore. So it's a perspective builder, so I hurt for them. I hurt for his children. And we walk by his office every single day. It's untouched. You see, his family pictures in there, and I pray for his wife and kids.
Alex, how do you, what was been your message to the players? I mean, Scott talked a little bit about the message overall, but what have you been messaging to your guys? I mean, they obviously have interaction with Shawn. I mean, but what's been kind of to kind of maybe get them through what's been a really tough and difficult time?
Yeah, and that's, I think, probably the hardest part is you don't even know what message you want to give yourself because you're in this scenario where what do you like on third down? They don't cancel the game. They don't, and not the me stories, but I remember my father-in-law passed away. I remember picking up food at a restaurant on Saturday night after the funeral, and you're just with the family all day, and your whole world has absolutely been rocked and will never go back to normal. When you go into a restaurant, pick up food, and it's just a Saturday night for everybody else, and it just smacks you right in the face. And that's our reality, and on a much smaller scale than what it is to be a member of his family. And so that's probably the hardest part is you don't know what messaging you're giving yourself, and you feel like every time you're focused on football that you're doing wrong by him. So doing as much same as we can. Obviously, it's a great distraction for the guys once you get on the grass and you're in the meeting room. You're forced to kind of just thrust into to that. But no, I don't claim to be good at it, and I'm not sure that we've done a great job. I don't know if you can.
Coach, what are some of the biggest takeaways from the North Carolina game that you hope to either hone in on or improve on what going into this big moment?
Yeah, I mean, the answer every week, we got to improve in every area, right? And so I saw from an effort standpoint, I thought I was pleased. The minute you say something, you kind of worry about the messaging to your guys in terms of saying, okay, that's as hard as we possibly could play. But I like the effort piece. I think we've kind of talked about it in here. We call them knockdown pieces, a play that might go for 5 yards and it gets knocked down for 7 as opposed to being a fatal defensively. I saw that, and then we've seen that for the most part in the first couple of weeks, not just this past weekend. And that's got to be a staple for who we are and what we are. When everything goes right for an offense and they get yards, not points, then you're kind of working in the right direction. Obviously, we want everything to be a TFL or no gain type of thing. But I thought the effort was good. Obviously disappointed with the long drive in the third. The messaging on that as well is there's plenty of opportunities to get off the field. We got to make a play to do that, play or plays. And so there's from a takeaway standpoint, obviously very pleased. 2 takeaways and just how the impact that can have on a game. But at the same token, if you only get 2 and you got them so early, what happened to the rest of the opportunities over the course of the game? Because I can get obviously tilted in our favor early, and then all of a sudden get swung back in their favor. They're able to get a hand on the football or something like that. So don't be content with just some early successes that way. So there's a lot to coach off of through the first 3 weeks, and certainly excited to get the outcome we got.
How have you seen the players coping in with practice in this adversity?
Yeah, I think for them it's go play football. And I say that it's not fair to have them do that, but it's what's required. I think they've done a good job of it. I think it's as you structure things and you're in the meeting room, the walkthroughs, and you're on the practice field. It's day and age where guys don't probably tell you as much as maybe they used to because we're all kind of new, and so it's a unique atmosphere that way. But I think they've handled it well. I think what's again doing what's been required of them in that moment is kind of how I would describe doing it well. So try to honor them this weekend.
Obviously, Coach Clark's closer to the offense, but how have you seen players on the defensive side of the ball involved with the team? How have you seen players?
Yeah, I think it would be a question specifically to the players, as they're around each other and those things. It's one thing Coach Frost has done a tremendous job in his time here, better than some places in the country in terms of you don't feel the OD like we're separate programs or something along those lines. But he sat next to me in team meetings, and there's a void, and I'm gonna make real sure in my time here no one sits in that chair, which had nothing to do with me, but has everything to do with him. And but no, I think the guys have kind of rallied around each other, which is good.
The time you guys work together, what's going to be your lasting memories of Shawn and the relationship you guys have?
Well, yeah, all of us have had tough moments in this business, and then you never want to compare an assistant coach to a head coach, and you just know that chair is so much different. What you have to deal with, but you got a unique perspective as a guy that was a head coach for a long time, especially at a place he loved so much. And I think as coaches, maybe sometimes you think you're sharing the trauma of losing football games or not having successes that you expect to have or had at other times and stuff like that. But it sometimes has a tendency to kind of bring guys together in terms of shared experiences and those things. And so he was one of those guys that just showed great perspective in it. What was a uniquely funny guy, and had a great humor about him. Obviously, seriousness when it came to the football side of things, but a guy you could ask about his head coaching perspective on certain elements, things, and have those type of conversations as an assistant coach. You think you have all the answers. He'd been in that chair type of thing. Just as you talk football, but family guy, and when players are coming up to him and asking him how his son's doing in baseball and some of those things, there's no box score in the paper, so he's talking about them, which is really, really cool. So that's a shared experience as a dad.
Coach, first road game of the season, Big 12 opener. What's your message to the team as you prepare for the challenge ahead?
Yeah, I think the opportunity to go on the road, you got to embrace it. You got to remind yourself why you decided to play Power 4 football. Some guys have played at this level, some guys haven't. Obviously, just a great environment this past weekend, so it's not. But they're cheering for you as opposed to against you. But just as a competitor, when the crowd is quiet, things are going well. When you get on the road, but you got to be able to handle the other side of it. And adversity as much as you feel it at home. It kind of rains down on you on the road, and so then you got to decide if a bunch of guys in purple are clapping, if that's going to wreck you, or can you stick your chest out, your shoulders back, and kind of respond in those moments. And so until you're in them together, which again that's the uniqueness of new programs every year type of thing, and new guys, we got to see it through together, and then expect them to obviously attack adversity and those things. It's not like we have not had adversity, but again, they'll say it a different way on the road. And again, I think for most guys as competitors, it excites you, when kind of the crowd is raining down on you.
What are the challenges that Avery Johnson and really the Kansas State offense presents to your defense?
Yeah, the multiplicity. I mean, unfortunately, I have history with them, and I say unfortunately for a reason, right? I mean, and this comes out of complete respect to that staff and what they do and how they attack you and use their weapons. And the quarterback has always been a big piece of the puzzle for them. You got a guy with speed traits, keep plays alive. He can make bad plays good. He's got the arm to direct it downfield if you get sloppy in some of those things. If you sell out for the run, he can beat you over top. And then they got some weapons from a skill standpoint, which again is just historically them. Whether it's coming from the backfield as tailback, wide receiver, The speed is different, and you got to respect that. But it's very difficult to pinpoint, going against these guys that okay, this is what you need to stop them, and then you can start there, and then the list keeps just getting longer and longer and longer. And then when you got a quarterback with some experience and kind of been in the fire and battling, which he's been doing this year, like you just again the word respect comes up, and so you better respect him, and you better not let kind of like I mentioned is a good play offensively turn into a fatal. You got to fight and scratch a claw to keep him out of the end zone.
It's been a long time since Lewis Carter had seen the field. It's obviously the target in his leg. It's even the bye week. So how do you think he performed coming back and like he played really well against UNC?
Yeah, I tried really hard not to be too positive. I mean, just because you want to leave the carrot out for the guys, but it was fun to watch him on Saturday. I mean, that was, and you got to give credit to him and obviously Coach Malfield coaching him up and all those things. But there's 20 again. And you kind of knew it in the moment as you're watching it in real time in the game, and we had the iPads on the sideline. But you kind of, maybe you give yourself too much credit. Well, that was a good call. No, that was a human that knocked that thing down. That it kept being 20. And you watch it on film on Sunday, and it was a great job by him. It was a great performance. I'd love to minimize it. He's got to do it again and all those things, but he's a football playing dude now, and we need him to be for us. But big fan of Lewis.
Alex, what have you seen from the front defensive line the last few weeks? You've got a lot of good pressure, and I think you knocked 3 quarterbacks out, to be honest with you, in the last 2 games. But what have you seen from that group's pressure maybe that you guys are getting to apply?
Yeah, I think the bar keeps moving as you go through it. The more disruption that you have, then now we want to see the production to come up with it. And there's certainly some moments where we're really close. And like I joke, I kind of with the guys, I kind of nerd out on TFLs and sacks and stuff like that. But that doesn't, in the end, is that the end all be all? No, but it's trying to keep them out of the end zone. So being disruptive and doing your job and stuff like that. Sometimes if you just stick with it a little bit, we can get you there just a half a click sooner. The production then will go up. So not a negative. I don't turn it into a negative, but I think that's something that we do have a high expectation for. Okay, the bar. Okay, we can. We expect to be where we're supposed to be. We're making plays at or near the line of scrimmage at times, which is good. We're affecting quarterbacks, which is good. Now we just like to see more negative plays, and selfishly, not just, and they do too, believe me. But the impact that they can have on drives, getting offenses behind. The difference between 2nd and 9 and 2nd and 12, I know it's 3 yards, but it can be astronomical over the course of a game and what it means to an offense, the pressure it puts on them, and some of those things. So, been pleased without question. And then again, just trying to keep moving that bar up and up because I think we got some guys that can do some things.
Coach, the Wildcats are one of the highest teams in the country. The least amount of penalties that they draw. Just after last game, what do you do to keep this team disciplined so that way you don't get 3 yards?
Yeah, I think that there's obviously a number of different ways penalties happen. Some of them are aggressive penalties. Some of them are extremely stupid penalties. There's another way to say it. The one thing for us from a discipline standpoint, with discipline, you can let your instincts take over. When you're disciplined, you can think about job description. You can think about how you're going to get to the quarterback, for instance, if we're talking about the defensive front. Be the same thing on the back end. With discipline, you think about playing the football as opposed to grabbing receivers or some of those things that you think about defensive penalties. Those are the most common as you go through it. And so, discipline matters because it gives you a chance to make a play. The minute I make a penalty, an egregious one, that whether it's a pre-snap one, and we want to pin our ears back and we want to go, and we want those guys certainly not scared to get off the ball because that has an impact. Get off is real, but at the same token, obviously we got to make sure we're keying the ball, not listening to sounds and all those things. So we're coaching it, believe me, from a discipline standpoint. And part of the messaging, regardless of penalties, is the minute I have one, I negate the ability for myself to make a play, and I negate the ability for anyone else on the defense to make the play. It's the reality we'll never know. For instance, we get a pick the other week and then it's negated because of a penalty. So I think one, it's messaging, and then 2, I think they certainly understand it. But all that being said, we certainly want an aggressive unit and guys getting ready to get off the rock.
Can I ask you a question? First question, just when the conference play starts, it feels like it's another level of the season. Just how anxious are you to see the defense go against it?
Yeah, without question. I think there's reason there's conferences, and there's commonality as you start going through the conference. Obviously, week one's obviously a little bit different because you're not seeing all the crossover film as you go through the season, but you get a sense as you're seeing whether you're evaluating other defenses versus the offenses you're playing on a particular week. It just very quickly kind of. I don't know. It becomes more of an in-house project as you're going through a conference because you get the common opponents and everything else, and there's a respect standpoint too to the conference that you play in. And there's good football, there's good offense in particular, specifically as it applies to us, and so you know that you're not going to get a Saturday off, and obviously starting this weekend and the environments that's attached to it. And, we're not at a place with unique rivalries historically, but on the same note, you're at a place where now you're going to create them, and you can only create them by winning some games. And so we got a pretty big task to create that.
Just my last question. No matter what this season's going to be, how do you as coaches link into each other and into the work to kind of get through it when mentally and emotionally it can be tough for you?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things over the course of the season. I think sometimes too, as coaches, if you're not careful, you can almost create a scenario where you're different than the general population. And why? Because we coach football, or the names are in the paper, or it's reported every week in terms of your wins and losses and stuff like that. So I think it's real critical that as you go through it, you say perspective. Sometimes it's not to be overly dramatic, but it's almost like an enlightenment deal where you got to remind yourself that everyone else is going through the same thing. You try to get the outcome every weekend. You do or you don't, and you try to go do it again the next weekend, and you try to do great by these guys. We don't get them as long as we used to, so those relationships are different. But man, what an awesome responsibility it is for us to try to make them play their best football of their careers. And you're still, as a coach, your responsibility to say if you weren't here, they wouldn't have the same experience. And so you want it to be a situation where you get them to play above their ability level in terms of your time with them. And then, specific to the scenario now with losing Coach Clark, is there's just an awesome responsibility on our part to somehow honor him. And you can put patch on jerseys, and there's a lot of things you can do, and none of it feels right and all those things. But no, it just it's a responsibility to make him proud and maybe give his family something to look to over the next coming weeks. All right, thank y'all.
Coach Cooper.